When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode.
Well, hello, everybody. Yep, I'm back on the saddle in the podcast world. Took a few months off, and we are lining up the queue with so many guests. You guys will be full of stories for the rest of the next quarter. But as you know, this is the Fearless Mindset Podcast, and today we have a good friend of mine, a veteran, served in the Army, served overseas. You wouldn't know it with the suit and tie he's wearing, but he is the owner of Fame Marketing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We got you on, Ron. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing better than I deserve. Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be on. And, I just want to congratulate you on the Fearless Mindset. When you started this thing several years ago, I felt like it was a good idea for you to do this, and you've done so well with it and just really grinded it out and made it into something. And I just want to congratulate you.
And for the audience, if you see that logo right there, Ron actually designed that.
You're too kind.
And he's got a knack for marketing. And he's got, he's in the security space, but he's really in the marketing space. If you guys don't know who Ron is, you see his stuff on social media, Fame Marketing out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he does some big stuff nationwide, and he's a big deal. He knows that world of marketing. He's been doing it all his entire career, and he also does security because he enjoys that part of it. And you would never know it, but he likes to play behind the scenes. So, what's going on in the world of marketing? And we have the elections coming up. Everybody's cutting budgets right now, Ron. Everybody's afraid to spend. What are you seeing and hearing with your clients?
Well, I think it's a lot of that. Usually in a presidential election year, it's always very volatile. The marketplace is volatile. A lot of people are not sure what's going to happen based upon what type of administration we're going to have. So consumer behavior is unpredictable, and a lot of corporations decide to kind of pull it in and play it safe. So you see marketing budgets shrink. You see spending levels shrink. We've got inflation. I'm pretty sure we're going through what could be considered of a kind of a I don't want to say depression, but there's some economic stress going on that's got people feeling uneasy, which is definitely changing and impacting spending habits. So that's what I'm seeing right now. I think that's typical for this type of environment. And I think with the polarized kind of political environment right now, you've got a lot of just unusual behaviors that are going on. And as you own a business, trying to navigate that and make sure you're positioned properly to pursue happiness, in the American way is something that people need help with.
Do you see them cutting back right now because they have the mindset of scarcity?
It depends on the mindset of the owner of that business, who the principal is. There's people that have a fearless mindset, kind of like an Elon Musk, and they operate based upon information. Yeah. And then there's people that kind of let their fear cause them to make decisions, and sometimes those aren't the best. I think if you've got a good team around you to help guide you through that, then you're more likely going to make good long-term decisions, good sustainable decisions to position yourself in the future. And if you don't, and then you're going to operate with some blind spots, and it's the things you don't know that are going to get you. Just like in combat, it's the things you don't know that make you vulnerable.
I know, a lot of people throw ads on LinkedIn, Facebook, and all that. They have a social media manager. Why should they choose Fame Marketing over their social media manager that might be a college graduate in marketing? And what's the difference? Are we comparing apples and oranges, or are we two different thought processes?
No, I think that, we have a social media manager, and there's a lot of companies that have social media managers. So social media management is one of those things that you hire somebody to do, And they're going to use the same algorithms. They're going to post things at some frequency. They're going to have a great camera, take pictures, and they're going to make some content. They're going to put it out there, and that is going to be successful or it's going to fail. Usually it's successful if someone has a good strategy, if there's a good plan, a good roadmap that you are trying to determine an outcome. And I think the reason you would work with someone that is a professional at a CMO level is that what I see most of the time when we take on a contract with somebody, even if they have an internal person, and that person's great, but does that person have the experience and the knowledge to come up with a strategy that will be able to lead you through all of the different challenges and pitfalls that you can that occur when you're spending money in a market, trying to get someone's attention and trying to get them to engage with you so that they make a purchase, so that they engage in a relationship with you. And there's a lot of things that go into that if you don't know, you end up wasting a lot of money. You'll post things and you've got pretty pictures and cute cat videos and people are watching them and nothing's happening. Well, why is that happening? Well, there's a difference between getting a reaction and getting attention and creating a response. And there's you have to be strategic in that. There's things that you need to understand about human behavior, about different audience profiles. What are their channel preferences? What are their needs? What's their ability to participate in what you're offering? What is their inclination to participate in what you're offering? And you have to be able to ask yourself those questions along with several other questions like, what's uniquely better about what you do? You know, most people, one of the biggest mistakes is their whole marketing plan and their brand is really a rehash of what their competitors are doing. And there's a book out called The Blue Ocean Strategy, read it several years ago. And it really helped me to understand that in order to successfully market your services or your product, that you have to fish where there's plenty of fish and with the right bait, but you also might want to fish where there's not a lot of other fishermen. And so that's what I mean about you being uniquely better. What are you offering? What are you doing that no one else is doing? And that in itself, sometimes the question that people can't answer. And Mark, honestly, that's where we start. Because a lot of times when we meet someone and they've hired this person out of college and they want them to run their social media because they think that's the answer, or they want to buy some Google ads. If you look at all the content they're putting out, you could take their name, their brand logo off of it, put their competitors on it, and it still makes sense and it's still relevant. Well, if that's the case, then you're probably wasting your time and money because the marketplace really has no reason to disrupt their normal life pattern or make a change to you. It's kind of the same thing. And so planning and strategy becomes a really important part of that. And just the part of gathering that information and trying to help make good decisions moving forward is just critically important. Bigger companies, they got a CMO that does that type of thing for them. They've got a guy that they pay a couple $100,000 a year to that has a lot of experience to help them with their marketing strategy and all the things that they're doing to steer that company in the direction it needs to go. Most people can't afford that guy because their budget, if you're a small or medium-sized business, you're probably doing that for yourself along with being the janitor and making the product and selling the product and doing all those things. And so you can't afford those professional services. So you may want to look at something like maybe a fractional CMO, someone like you would hire an attorney and you've got that attorney on a retainer. But if you had to hire him to just be your chief legal counsel and work for you, you probably couldn't afford it. But you could pay him when you need him. You could pay him to take care of your legal structure and your legal strategy. And then when something comes up to work on a specific project, you bring that person in. Same thing with your CPA. Most people don't have a CFO in their company. They hire a CPA or a money management guy that works in a fractional capacity. And so I think it'd be a good solution for a lot of small and medium-sized businesses to engage somebody to come up with a strategy, help them come up with a plan, and then one of three things could happen. They could execute it themselves. They could build a team to execute the plan, or here's a shameless plug, I've got a team that could execute the plan too. So, but I think that's where I see a lot of this fail with people is they don't start off with a good plan. And it's kind of like back in the days. You remember MapQuest, Mark?
Oh, yeah.
So before you would take that family trip, you'd go look up the distance and all that stuff, and then you'd print it out and you get in the car, and that's how you go to Disneyland. Well, how many people open a business and they don't have any map at all? They don't know. They go, well, I have clients ask me all the time, well, what's the biggest bang for my buck? What's the best advertising? Well, holy cow. It depends on what you're doing and what you're trying to do. Who's your audience? What's their behavior? What do they prefer? What do they want? What do they need? All of that is determined based upon the answers to those questions, and people need help guiding them through that.
What do you see as mistakes being made by the small security companies? Like mine, for example. I have a girl, Bailey, she posts some stuff. What do you see as mistakes being made by small security companies? Most of my audience are small security companies that listen to the show, or veterans or small businesses. Where are they making mistakes? Are they identifying their identical client, or are they just throwing mud on the wall hoping it sticks?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people do on social media in general is they talk about the things that interest them and not the things that interest their target audience. And I think they also don't do a good job of talking about things that would cause people to take an action. And so one thing that people need to understand, and I just grew to understand this, I read a book called Neural Selling. And neural selling was very interesting to me because I always thought that you needed to give people a lot of information to get them to make a decision. And that's not how we make decisions. So you've got I'm going to nerd out for just a second. So you got your limbic brain, and then you've got your analytical brain or reptilian brain. Your limbic brain is where all your emotions occur. And I didn't realize till about 5 years ago that every decision you've ever made, you made emotionally. And you have justified it analytically. So when I look at a lot of advertisement that is going to fail, that I know now, is because they lead with all the facts and figures and think that that's going to help somebody make a decision. We make decisions because we love something, because we hate something, because we're in fear, because we have hope. Good, effective advertising, understanding what are the motivators for that audience. What is it we need them to feel to get them to do something? And then you justify it analytically. And so a lot of times what people make the mistake of is they want to lead with all of the features and benefits that people actually aren't interested in until they see the value of even doing it. Is it solving a problem? Is this helping me be who I am? Is it helping me be the hero in my story? Is it helping solve this issue? It'd be interesting. It'd be like, you watch Star Wars? So you remember the story was like, you got Luke Skywalker and, he's trying to go destroy the Death Star. He doesn't realize Darth Vader's his dad, but he's the villain, and all this stuff is going on. And he's got Obi-Wan Kenobi in the first who's trying to help him become a Jedi. Well, how boring would it have been if we'd have started out with the diagram of the Death Star and how powerful it was? Like nobody would have cared.
Very.
I don't want to hear this. Is nothing. Right. We want to see this guy that is trying to be the hero, that's trying to become this Jedi Knight, that's being guided through this by this character, and we're engaged in that saga and that story because it resembles what we want. We want to be a hero too. We want to see somebody triumphant. So we all want to triumph at something. We all want to win at something. And the best advertising, in my opinion, helps us understand what we need to do to win. And the best advertiser is the one that positions himself as the guide to help you do it. So that's the other part. Most of the time, position himself as the hero in the story with their advertising. This is how great I am, and this is why you should choose me. And people don't really respond to that because that's good for you, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Why am I going to help you be a hero? I want to be a hero because it's about us.
Is branding more important than marketing?
So branding is a part of marketing. And I think branding is simply, what do people understand about you? What do they believe about you that's true? And what do you stand for? And so those are important because I think that the better question is branding more important than advertising? And I would say yes, because advertising are the platforms you buy. That's your social media, that's your billboard, that's your pay-per-click, that's your TV, that's your OTT or whatever you're buying. But if you don't have a good story and a good message that gets people's attention and gets them to care about something that they want to change or want to improve or makes their life better, then the advertising is of no. I see people waste money on advertising all the time because their marketing is terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Wow. So you think people use the old style marketing that was effective 6 months ago, a year ago, and with all the algorithm changes, they don't stay on top of it with the CMO? Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Well, when the digital stuff, the digital stuff that you look at, those algorithms change quite a bit. Google is just like the master at making changes because Google serves Google. They're the biggest search engine in the world. They want to make sure that they serve us because we're their client. But they don't notify the rest of the world on how they're making our lives better. So as marketers and advertisers, it's incumbent upon us to figure out what they're valuing. What are the things that the behaviors they're going to reward versus the behaviors they're going to punish? And that you want to have somebody full time in that because they don't put out a memo. There's no notice. All of a sudden, the maps are a priority and they're up, and everything else if you hadn't focused on your maps in your Google business profile, you're going to be in trouble. So yeah, I think that, being current is extremely important.
So your business, your job is to crack that code of the algorithm to figure out what works for each individual unique client.
Absolutely, because, business occurs really in quarters. And if you don't pick up on these things, you could waste a whole quarter of earnings. And that's just when you're a small or medium-sized business trying to make payroll, trying to not give up market share to your competitors in a medium-sized city or a small town, man, you lose a quarter, it could be devastating. You might not recover.
That's true. Wow. So what is your advice to all those small security companies that are trying to survive and thrive right now with the changing political economic climate of the U.S.? What is your advice for them? They're trying to get that client's attention. What is your advice? I think it's word of mouth. This is the best form of getting business is referral.
Well, I don't think
a lot of people spend a lot of time on LinkedIn.
Well, I don't think that
does LinkedIn really work?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any question in what you're saying. I think there's nothing more powerful than a referral. There's nothing more powerful than a trusted source going, hey, call Mark. Mark's my guy. He'll take care of you. And that's what it is. All advertising does is put more people into the funnel that can have a positive experience and tell that story, which is people you don't know. Now, for the security business, what that really means is that you want to be able to, you need validation. So when that person says, hey, I really like Mark Ledlow, you should try him out because I think he's got what you need and can take care of you. How you represent yourself on social media, on your website, and the other places they find you is going to determine whether or not they believe that that's credible or not. Is that your cousin that told me that? Or is this really a real customer? Is this somebody that, that is just a super fan for no good reason? Or is there really a valid reason that is substantiated evidentially for that? And so I think that's when you look at a small security company, that you've got to have your marketing's got to elevate and substantiate your position in the marketplace, because if you don't, then it undermines it, because there's no in between. It's either elevating it and substantiating or it's undermining it one way or another. And so there are people losing business that don't even know they're losing business because they're not showing up properly digitally. And despite whatever strong recommendation or referral they got, when you A/B test it or look at it side by side with one of their competitors, they may not, they don't even know how many calls they're missing.
Wow, so true. So you have the social media platforms. That's one form of marketing, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all that. But then again, in Instagram, you have TikTok, and I'm probably missing somebody. Oh, Twitter. And they all have a different specific role. They all have different audiences. And then you have the podcast world. And how effective, after your analytics and your research, and you've been in the business a long time, how powerful is having a podcast getting the message out?
Well, you tell me. I mean, I think that, you started your business and you started the podcast around the same time. You've experienced some incremental growth. I would say that your podcast has been instrumental in showing who you are in the industry. I remember the first time one of my guys was like, "Hey, Mark Ledlow?" Like, they didn't believe I even knew you. But the thing, I mean, anytime you've got a channel and you've got an active channel with an audience where you're sharing information, you're educating people, you're gaining credibility, you're helpful, and people find value in what you're doing, it's going to put you in a position to do business. And that's what you've got to look at. Does what I'm doing put me in a position to do business based upon improving my credibility and being helpful to the marketplace? What are you doing to answer people's questions and be helpful? And that's where marketing and advertising gets a bad name. When you start just asking for business and wanting people to spend money, in my opinion, that's called being an asshole. You're just asking for stuff. Be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. The way you don't be an asshole is that you offer something of value to people, you help them, you serve them. And at that point, the benefit of that is that you're in a relationship that is monetizable at that point. And it's still not about making the money. The money is just a byproduct of the relationship because it takes the money to make things go. It really is about doing something that people value and being helpful and everybody getting what they need down the road. It's about that journey of life. Just like Star Wars, it's from getting from Uncle Ben's farm in Tatooine and going and take over the Death Star, and who's in the Millennium Falcon with you, So I'm an 80s kid, I guess.
Yeah. What is your advice? What platform is the most effective tool from what you've seen in your clients to get their message out? What is it? Local? Is it national, regional? How does that work?
Well, I think you got to start local. And I think you want to be hyper local. You got to own your backyard and win your backyard before you're going to have credibility outside of your yard. That's critically important. It's absolutely where you start. And I would say that that question, I don't have an answer. It depends on who you are, who you're trying to talk to, because even in security, there are guys that want to do private security for commercial properties. There's guys that want to do loss prevention. There's people that want to do EP work. There's people that want to do workplace violence. Right. And there's people that do all of it. There's people that do some of it. People do PI work. It really depends on your audience's preferences or how they get the information. How do they enjoy receiving the information? And that's really the key to it. So the audience profile, the product or service that you are offering, and matching those two up. And that's where the strategy comes in. You got to understand and research those behaviors. And you know what? It may change from Tulsa, Oklahoma to California. People in the Midwest don't operate the same as people in the South or the East or up north. And there are some crossover things because we're all Americans, but based upon geography, based upon, cultural differences in the country, man, that's a moving target all the time. And that's why you really need somebody to help you dig through that. Because if I call somebody and go, hey, here's what I did in Tulsa, do this, it worked for me really well. And you're in Nevada and you're in Las Vegas, I mean, you're going to be mad. You're like, well, it didn't work for me. You lied to me. That sucked. It's a different deal. You got more transient traffic. You've got more entertainment going on. The residents behave a little differently. You're out in the desert. It's different.
Now, something that comes to my mind, TikTok. A lot of people are jumping on that for the younger audience. Maybe if you're selling makeup to younger ladies and all that, maybe that might be an effective platform. I don't know. But everybody seems to be flocking to TikTok because their algorithms are wide open.
Yeah,
from what I hear. What is your opinion on TikTok?
With TikTok, I'm a big guy. I like food. I end up getting served a lot of cooking videos. I didn't think I would like cooking videos on TikTok, but clearly I like looking at food. I think from an and I also, so I do a lot of martial arts training, and I end up seeing a lot of fight videos, a lot of training videos for a different type of martial arts style, a lot of boxing videos and things. I think you can use TikTok for some training type things, depending upon what you're offering. Little known things that people need to know, because you got to keep it short on TikTok. But I think it can be useful for getting some attention. Here's the thing, though, with social media, people need to understand. It's an awareness medium. It doesn't convert into a sale. Most people don't call off of something they saw on social media. They become aware of it, and then they go look it up online, or they click on the website. And then if they find what they're looking for, they may click to call, or they may fill out a form and engage you that way. But typically social media is an awareness medium, is useful for validation and your brand recognition, but it's not going to convert into a lead or a sale most often. It can from time to time, but it's not a good lead strategy.
You'd probably be more effective going to a conference face-to-face.
Well, it depends on if that's security professionals that maybe you can link up with that could outsource business to you. That network is extremely important. Or is it businesses that need security services? So it depends on what the conference is.
I think people are tired of doing Zooms and meetings that way now. Is that what you're hearing? Everybody's like going to conferences, conventions. They want that face-to-face. They want that intimate interaction to create that trust of emotion. And I think people, since COVID, have lost that magic touch of connecting to that human element of trust. They got kind of lazy being on Zoom. They did everything on Zoom. They can work from home. And now I'm seeing everybody, like, Jamie Dimon said, everybody's got to get back to work. The banks that stayed open during COVID beat our butts in earning reports. Everybody's coming back to work. Let's get back to work, folks. And now we have the resistance of the younger generation. No, don't make me eat the brownie.
Well,
it's like
the younger generation,
they don't want to go back to work.
Because they've grown up in this technical space of exclusivity, kind of in this silo. Haven't really, and they have a lot of anxiety about this. They haven't been socialized to even understand how to navigate that situation. I mean, I've seen them sit next to each other and text each other. I mean, it's kind of crazy sometimes the things you see. And so,
it's like, really?
But I think that's why the anxiety level is so high, because you're concerned about your ability of how you're going to show up. Am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Are they going to like me? Well, let me hide over here and I don't have to deal with that. I don't want to be face to face, because now that confrontation, it might be unsuccessful. And now I've got to deal with all the emotion that comes with that. But I do think,
well, they're the future workforce of our next generation. I mean, they are the future of our country, that generation. And if they can't communicate only via texting each other and can't open their mouths, that is freaking scary.
Well, they're going to get dragged into it. I think there's no way around it, because one thing you hear me say around my shop, and I believe it, is that human behavior is undefeated. So if you look at all of society and civilization, people have always gathered on the rivers of the world in clumps of people. Actually, we don't have to live around each other. There's more than enough land all over the planet. We can spread her out and not be around each other. But that's not how we're designed to function. We're designed to function as a community because of the laws of attraction. We're a bunch of negatively and positively charged ions attracting and repelling each other in the atmosphere. We are designed chemically to produce certain things in our mind, in our bodies, that we like or we don't like. Now, two of those that are very significant is serotonin and cortisol. When things happen that we like, which touch, smiles, pleasant things, connection, it releases serotonin. That's why some people can't be alone. They're addicted to it. They crave it. We want to be around. When it gets dark, we're alone, we're scared, we're afraid. Cortisol, anxiety, frustration, fear. Those things, we're hardwired for those things, and there's no way around it, no matter how you identify. Those things are a thing. You're a human being, and you're subject to those things. I think overall human nature is going to prevail. I think some of our behavior right now is unnatural, and it will correct itself because the solution lies in the correction, and we cannot continue to fail to engage and be in relationship with each other. We just can't. It won't work.